Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of my first day in tech, the Careerist podcast. I'm Andrew Riddle here to help provide whatever tech questions, answers, and interests that we have. And of course, I'm here with Kamitha. Hi, Kamitha. How are you?
Hello, everyone. I got my glasses on like Andrew today.
We're being very studious today. We've done a lot of research. I got my new glasses today um, just for this podcast, right? Because that's the whole point. Everyone can see that. We uh we had some interesting AI news come in here, right? The big the big race, the big AI race is still going strong, and we've got some interesting updates from OpenAI and from Google. Did you see any of that?
So I saw some of it. I practiced some of it, but I know you have a whole lot of information on it. So please tell us all this stuff going on with our wonderful technology.
All right, so we these are the big leaders, right? We're kind of in the we're in like a land grab here for AI. We've got a lot of names in the race, but the two leaders that we really see a lot of OpenAI, and of course we have Project Astra, which is Google's Gemini. So those are going to be the big names going on. They both had really big updates to show how much better their AI is than everyone else to hit the competition. I know that for OpenAI, the stars. So we're going to throw around some jargon here, but GPT-4o was the major ChatGPT component. They talk a lot about. You're going to hear a lot of words like modality, and really what that is that the ability to understand and respond to using speech, recognizing images, that kind of thing. And then the big Google thing is the Gemini era, which is their answer to OpenAI. It started off as Bard, moved into Gemini, and they're talking a whole lot about Project Astra. That's going to be the big rap subject battle cry name that Google is going to be using, and that's going to be their answer to the ChatGPT 4. So they weren't going to let Google steal or they weren't going to let OpenAI steal the show. So Astra is really concentrating on many of the same aspects of modality, text, recognizing imagery, and a lot of it has to do with video, text to images, that type of thing. So it's kind of a neck and neck still on the board, and it's a really interesting thing to see. AI alone, it's just such a fascinating era to be witness to. But I love the drama of the race as well. This is,
I'm like,
we
there's
just
so
got
much to talk about. Where do we get started? I mean, do we talk about the complexity of these algorithms? Do we talk about the environment? Do we talk about these new data centers that they're popping up across the world to be able to house and keep all this information? What I do love that I think is something to mention, especially on a positive level, is the accessibility push, right? Like the ability to have someone speak in a different language, or I think I saw an advertisement or a commercial where they were kind of like I don't know, at a cafe at a restaurant, and it's like, "Hey, me and Andrew are speaking, but I can't hear him. Stop the or mute the baby." Was the baby crying? And it muted the baby, and I'm like, "Wow, that's I mean, if this works, give me a break, right?" And it's
mute
like
the
I can't
baby.
hear everyone. Yeah, and it's like, well, I still can't hear Andrew. Isolate his voice and make it louder so that I can hear him. And it literally quieted the environment and raised your voice so that I would be able to hear. And I'm like, man, the beauty of that technology. Now, I don't know what that looks like if you need to be aware of your surroundings and all of a sudden you can't hear around you. Like that's another that's the other side of the coin, but the accessibility push, I really appreciate. Like I'm so excited for that. But I'm a
Right.
conspiracy theorist at heart, so I'm always like, okay, well, what's the other side of the coin?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, the usability aspect of it for which is it is great, right? And using the audio for more natural sounding. Really, I think both of them are really heading more towards AI assistance, right? That's where we're heading in the world. So we see a lot of this kind of culminating to that. As far as usability, having that targeted audio is really important. Um, and then um, and then just the democratization of AI, OpenAI especially, a lot of features that they had originally reserved for paying users, including access to image analysis and custom chat box, things like that. Um, they've opened that up for a wider audience, right? And that was a good strategic move for OpenAI from a business sense, right? Because if it's open and available, then people tend to use that. They don't really want to pay a premium for it. So
And you get the creativity that comes with diversity. Right? Isn't that the whole point? Like that's what the whole movement is, and the whole point of diversity is the beauty that comes out of an idea that you could not think of because you are not in the environment, or kind of live the life. I want to hear your thoughts too, Andrew, on kind of what you think about these technologies, because I know you've done some research. My research was more practical in a sense that I practice on my own. So I'll give you an example for the open AI. So I have it on my phone. Like I pay the money, the $20 a month, because it's important to me and it helps me with teaching the kids. So anyway, got a backyard. I'm getting some landscaping done, and I wanted to get some ideas because I want a garden, but I still want the trees and that whole deal. And I was able to take a picture of my garden and then ask ChatGPT, like, "Hey," or OpenAI, whatever whatever wording you want to use, um, you know, give me ideas on where I can put my garden and where I could put my vegetation and just a landscaping theme. And sent the picture, and lo and behold, it gave me ideas. And it wasn't, a bunch of pictures or anything like that, even though it has that capability, but it was very specific, pinpointed um, text information that was pretty practical. And again, the technology is amazing. It's like having a friend without dealing with the drama.
right, right. I mean, and you can
So
ask
what do
for
you
some
think? What do
drama
you
if you
think?
want it to be a little bit of a sharper friend, of
I
someone
know.
that kind of keeps you on your toes. But it is really interesting, and I think you and I were in tech. We've been with this technology for probably, I mean, OpenAI maybe 3 years now. I think fall of 2 years ago, I think was when they opened it up to their beta testing. And I was there. We've been there since day one playing with this thing, right? And this is still new to a lot of people, and it's still new to us too. I mean, it's ever changing, but we are very comfortable with it. I do the same thing. I use it throughout my entire day for everything, for ideas, for kind of hashing out my thoughts, for notes to self, if you're talking about, gardening, right? So we live in Black Prairie area of Dallas. So I'm looking, and I have a yard, right? But I'm not much of a gardener, so I need something that's native to this area. So I said, "Oh, okay. So I need to know more about the area that I live in. What is it?" And they're, "Oh, you're in zone 8A." I was like, "Can you be more specific to like this point of Dallas?" And, "Oh, you're in the Black Prairie area, and these are the plants that are indigenous to your area." And so which means that it's less cautionary tale for me to be involved with these plants, right? But I learned so much, and I'm constantly thinking of things that I want to learn more about. And I use AI all the time, and I just copy it. I send it right to my. I just keep it. I organize it on my phone, or I'll just text it to myself because my thread is just it's just crazy. I'm constantly looking at. I mean, if I look at it right now, um, my recent my recent questions are building an analysis of a podcast transcript, for instance. Wonder what we brought that up for. Um, Talking about coffee makers, like what makes a coffee maker, like how does that work, how do I make an educated guess about it, and then down to like popular spy novels. I mean, it seems very Google like, but it's not. Just it's the ability to have a conversation, or like a feel like you're having a human conversation with someone. It's like i'm I'm interested in kind of finding, I'm interested in finding something to read, and this is what I've been watching on TV, and this is what I've been interested in the news, and it's like I'm talking to, a professional or a really well experienced individual of this subject, and I can ask it very detailed questions, and when I think about how I use this every day, seems pretty normal to me, probably seems relatively normal, to a lot of people in the field because they've been using it for so long. But people are still getting into AI for the first time now. And I think, if what I love about the showcasings that we've been talking about with OpenAI and Google is that's some fun tech drama right there. Like if you haven't gotten into AI, right, but you like business drama, like this is a fun race to watch. Um, so I've been super interested in all of that. So uh, so that's my little tidbit for anybody who's just jumping in. Like now the drama is coming with AI, right? So you get that drama that you were talking about, Kamitha. But the creativity of it too is another thing that I was about with Google is they enhanced their image capability with Imagen 3, and then also working with AI in music, which I think is really interesting that I have a sandbox for, but I have not broken into.
I s I saw this article on, a Facebook thread where you can record your voice, and the AI technology will then create a song for you with your voice singing over the song. Although you didn't do any of that, and again, it goes back to, man, how fascinating is this? And then what are we gonna be able to believe soon? Like, if you can manipulate voices and now you can manipulate images, you can make people look like they're in places where they're not. It really becomes just an interesting thing, and although again, I just can't help it. I'm like, man, I'm like always a doom and gloom, but it's the reality of it, right? Like, come on, why do we even need all this? Like, why do I need to put myself in Antarctica when we're banned and most people can't go there anyway? Like, what's the point? Even though it's fascinating and beautiful and I'm here for it all. On the other spectrum, I'm just like, man, what are we doing? Like, what are
Yeah,
we
I
doing?
get that. And I was thinking about that as well, but think about how much revenue content creation is creating right now.
And that's a
How much
transfer of wealth that they talk about. That
Yeah, I mean,
that
and
part makes
it's
sense.
like people are, we've been cutting the cord on TV, and we're not just sitting there like clicking through 300 channels anymore. But people are sitting there going, on TikTok and on Instagram for hours, just
Yeah,
scrolling and scrolling. So, let's say that we can create something that allows people to make more interesting content. They start using that. They start getting followers. They start getting promoted. We start promoting that. There is that the financial aspect of like why creativity, why, and I'm not putting it down on creativity at all. I live in a creative household, we're artists, but you do kind of wonder like, well, why are they putting their money there? Why is it that they're working on generation images and on AI music and all of this kind of stuff, but to be able to create content is a huge revenue stream here, right
100%.
now.
You're right. And you
Yeah.
mentioned it too, like you were just looking it up. That was a part of your thing. Like, hey, how do I, kind of create this content or these videos or something that you mentioned, or like just something that you randomly, looked up using AI. So yeah, I mean, you're right. Cause look, dude, I'm gonna Google it tonight. You bought it up. Like, how do I make these reels? Because if I get another Facebook post saying that I can make $500,
Right?
and so you
I think
can
we could
make
all use
$500 off a
$500.
million views or something. I don't know if it's true. Like, don't, guys, don't quote me on that. But it's something with the revenue that, yeah, to your point, there's a transfer of wealth that's there. Um,
Mhm.
and us researchers and designers, we can get in on that. So it's a very good point. Very
Right. I
good
mean,
point. Point taken.
as as product designers and UX researchers, our job is to always ask why. We don't wanna just take everything at face value, and even when we're talking about, our own the people in our own business here, I think it's incredible what's happening. I think with AI, and really think of, I mean, I can't even wrap my head on the ability you know, whether it be Gemini or ChatGPT, OpenAI, what have you, to be able to understand what image it's looking at. That's momentum. I mean, that's incredible. That's huge.
In our first episode, I think, we were
Mhm.
talking about the NVIDIA conference.
That's right.
We were talking about the duality of virtual versus the real world and the ability to kinda transpose those things and be able to analyze and, uh, determine scenarios and things like that. This is exactly what they s don't quote me again, this is not exactly what they said, I am paraphrasing, okay? But basically, what they're saying is that the technology now has the ability to learn from itself. So what that means is now we can go on YouTube and look at the images and look at the videos and come up with more complex outputs or ideas to be able to communicate with us. So to your point, the fact that, like, man, how can it understand this complex image? How can it understand that when you drop something, it falls on the floor, but it doesn't go through the floor? Right? Without it ever touching the floor. How does it understand those things? And the technology is now understanding how to do that. So again, fascinating and very Terminator-ish as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're getting a little but I mean, another thing I was thinking about, right? So, think about like Google, right? And so their advanced conversational AI, their ability to recognize targeted audio, um, the output of natural language, right? Natural language that could sound like my language, and not just saying, oh, we're doing voice to text and then text to translation and then translation readout, but you and I being able to like have a phone conversation or talk on Zoom, and I'm speaking French and you're speaking German, and it's just a natural conversation. And I think that type of seamless integration is what's happening with what like Google is doing right now with Project Astra, and to be able to have all of these things integrate together into this and really what it is just tightening our community of our human community, and taking down these as many natural barriers as we can, so we can um, converse and be open and recognize each other as being human. It's very Star Trek kind of, planetary federation of oh man, I'm gonna get it for this one. Federation of planets. Thank
That's
you.
so good.
But
So good.
it has that. There's a lot of really interesting opportunities there, and not just for like, oh, okay. I mean, the small, when we're creating products, right, we create these small holistic environments, right? We can't just release something, that's a bridge to nowhere. It has to exist, right? And so, you know when we have things like Imagine 3, where you're getting text to images and professional looking, output, like photography output, illustrated output in seconds. It's it's not just for the sake of doing that. It's leading to something else. And and I probably can't even imagine what it's going to be. I think that there's a direction to it, of course, but even then, I mean, it seems right now that the sky is the limit for this, right? To be able to in real time create what we imagine as real experiences, real interactions, whether or not they actually are with a real person or they're with an artificial intelligence. If they could create, a real video with human language in fractions of seconds, then that interaction is it's a huge thing for humankind in general. And then the social surrogacy of AI is I don't even know what the boundaries of that would look like, and the reaches. And of course, we always have our doomsday, right? But at the same time, the good that it can do for people, it reminds me of Fahrenheit 451. If you remember, there's the mother, I believe, she would keep buying panels for her house and her walls, and so she'd be surrounded by people who were always having a party, and it was this AI kind of surrogate reality that she worked towards. And I'm like, when I'm seeing all of these updates, I just keep thinking about that part of the book in my head. I was like, that's that's it. Like that's where we're heading here. And it is pretty remarkable. The social influence of all of this is just going to be um, is just uncharted, I feel. I'm all one for creating metaphors and analogies to help understand, wrap my head around concepts. But when I think about where this is going, I truly am not sure. I can, hypothesize kind of a few steps ahead, but the future here is just is unwritten. I think is incredible. Um, yeah, it's and this is just what's coming out now, right? When you're talking about Nvidia, and then what is it? It's May, so first quarter next year. I can imagine the leaps that we've got at that point.
Yeah, you said something really interesting. It's something that I really like, that how it kind of, in a sense, it blurs, you didn't say blurs the lines, but it takes away those limitations and barriers that we have, whether it be language, geographic location. And I also see it also taking the barrier away for, what if folks can't type? Like not being silly, but for real. Like what if they're young, or there's something going on with their hands, or they're young and they have a great idea, but they haven't, got to the point that they're able to communicate it or articulate it in a way that can be taken seriously. And so to have a technology that can communicate those things, because I don't know about you, Andrew, but I mean, because I have little kids, I'm a little more observant, but these kids are different. They think different, they learn differently, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, but it's much, much different than what, I was exposed to, or what I am used to, and it seems like the technology is preparing us for something that maybe we don't fully understand, and this is not in a doomsday scenario, but in a good way. Um,
Right.
different ways that people, are gonna communicate, that um, the technology is gonna help us better understand and decipher in ways that maybe our senses aren't fully developed. Yeah, because you think of autistic kids, like, on in an extreme case where maybe they can't speak, but they can, they have a photographic memory and they can paint it with their eyes closed. Just something just dramatically crazy, and it makes you think of, like, these technologies and these computers, and it's just fascinating to me. So I'm really excited for that part of it, and it catching up with each other and the beauty that comes from that.
It is, and it is interesting. We've kind of talked on with just large language models. We talked about not too long ago, right? Using that in our professional lives, and one of the things that like LinkedIn has is well, I think they just do this for premium, but you can just, there are there are ways of doing this, but basically just having AI create, say, hey, I want to reach out to this person and ask them about their profession or something like that. But people are real nervous about how to doing that, right? They get um, they kind of freeze in the moment. They don't know where to start. They have white paper syndrome, I think they call that, right? And but AI can help jumpstart that, right? Help alleviate that immediate fear that you've got. It's so helpful to overcome the boundaries that we have in our own lives. What we thought were, well, this is just the wall. Like this is the end of the line. I'll never be able to do this because whatever. Because I just can't talk to people, or because I get nervous in crowds, or whether it's anxiety, or or some or a physical ailment of not being able to. My ability to type is extremely slow because of this reason, or not at all, or non-existent, or whatever. Overcoming that, having that, I mean, it really is. It's an interesting, yeah. It's a surrogacy. I mean, we use the word augmented reality, right? And we've used that for a long time. Um, and for those who are not familiar, so there's virtual reality. Think about like what Meta has with the mask, and you live in this world, and it's all simulation, right? And then you have augmented reality, which is experiencing your life, right? But having um, uh, stuff like artificial intelligence kind of as an appendage, a mental or visual appendage to help give you information around the world, right? So that's augmented reality. And what we're seeing more and more, and in testing, people have been more responsive to augmented reality. That's just the way it's going to go. We're not really the virtual world yet. We've tried that so many times. Augmented reality is so much more powerful to us. We respond better to it for some reason.
Adults do, the kids are all
Adults
about
do.
it. The kids are ready.
Right.
They're like, "Put me in the virtual world."
I'm
But
down.
the adults, we got stuff to do, right? Like, it's like, I wanna
Right.
play and I wanna explore, but I need to go to the grocery store, so help me know how long it's gonna take me to get here, point me to the direction to get me to the food that I need, like, those type of things are crazy productive for at least me in the genre of folks that live that kinda life right now versus if you're young and you're in college, you don't have
That's
anything else to
true.
do but sit on the couch. Yeah,
But
you got time to create a whole world,
So
Minecraft.
I think though, I think about how often people like you and I are leaning on AI, whether for questions or research or, getting, creating I mean, I think it's fair to say that we already live in an augmented reality, right? We use I mean, I could go as far as just saying the internet, but really, all of this technology, we use it every day as an appendage, right? This is an extension of us, right? It is part of our personality. Um, we use it to answer questions and emails and to do our research, and we copy its voice and pretend it's our voice, and it's already part of us. We're already there. That's and I'm all down for the Vulcan school of virtual reality. I think that's brilliant. I don't know if I could jump. Maybe I can do that as like a and get my doctorate at Vulcan school. So when the virtual reality comes into play, I'm all in. I'm always all in, right? I'm all down for the Wild West. But even just as a generation that grew up before the internet came out, with card catalog and all of those things, dialing 411 to figure out what time it is on a payphone. The fact that we grasp onto this kind of stuff for our daily use. I mean, hourly everything. I mean, it's constantly in parallel with our lives already. And so now when we're talking about integration with OpenAI or with Astra, it's completely it doesn't seem that sci-fi at all. I mean, that's really it's we're already on board with it. Um, and I do, and they have these kind of small leaps, right? When they're talking about, well, there's, recognizing images for like home security, which I think is great. There's creating, content for uh, art, for advertising, content creation, for revenue. All of that is kind of these small milestones of where we're at. But the truth of the matter, I think, is that when we start getting into that realistic assistance, it's not like it's going to be us and Alexa in our ear. I think really what it's going to be is we are going to be processing information and then we are going to be sharing it as if it's ourselves. And then there's, of course, then there's the philosophical question of, is it ourselves because we are the curator of this information, which is another big ethical question that people are having with AI, especially in content creation. But I think about like sculptors like was it Klaus Oldenburg, right? His output are these huge metal sculptures, but he doesn't make them. He creates sketches and he creates little prototypes and he does that, and then a foundry makes it. Is that any less his? I don't know. It doesn't seem to be. Andy Warhol didn't make his art. I mean, he made some of it, but mostly not. But it, we've kind of gone, and that's me creating the analogy and the metaphor of,
No, that's good though. That's good because I recently went through like a 6-week course on how to patent your intellectual property and how different it is now. And to your point, there is a difference now between your intellectual property and the technology's interference with that and what you can deem your property. And to your point, Andrew, it goes back to what we talked about in the first or second episode. Your currency is now going to be your ability to pay attention for long periods of time and your ability to ask the right questions to get the right output. And that is where your intellectual property comes in because you can get technology to write code for you. You can get 3D modeling to create a house, a heart. Excuse me for that. But you can get it to do a lot of things now. So, yeah, your idea is going to be your intellectual property, and that's a beautiful thing, right? That you don't have to go through the hard labor, and it goes back to the transfer of wealth But it is
It
something
yeah.
to think about too, about all the people that are being cut off. Um,
It yeah. It is,
but the beauty of getting it done quick. I mean, it's so many different sides to it, you know?
That's true, and I think you're gonna hear, of course, we hear a lot of with a lot of the word democratization. That's a big topic, big word, hot word for what's happening here in AI, and how does it democratize the tech world, the world, the business world, the money world. When you have stuff, where you allow people to not just learn but create, and it levels the playing field, which I think is great. I think we both think it's great, right? The democratization of community is amazing, and I think that's something amazing that tech does for us. And I think we're just really heading there more and more. The ability to say, well, I need to catch up. Like, how am I going to catch up with someone who's been coding? Or it's like, I mean, I feel like we're really leaning on devs right now, but how do I bring my ideas to life? There you go. How do I bring my ideas to life? And an AI can help with that, right? That the technical skills of it may not be as sharp, right? That may not be as dexterous as others, but the ideas are there, and AI can make that happen. And it can really allow people who have been marginalized, for one reason or another. They could be in a tech desert, the educational desert, just not having the same opportunities as others. But they say, I have amazing ideas, or rather, just being recognized for the amazing ideas, because AI can allow them to get that creation and content out in front of people so swiftly, that I think it really it's such an interesting shift. And that is going to be that's in itself is a really fascinating aspect, that we have with AI.
I'm over here looking at this or trying to you're probably like, "What are you doing?" I'm over here trying to find this article today that they're building data centers in, like, Costa Rica or one of those places, and they're training, like, 15,000 people to be able to run those data centers and and the whole process that goes with that, and what is considered a marginalized community because they simply don't have access otherwise. And so, and again, Andrew, you are dropping the nuggets today. I'll tell you that because
It's the new glasses.
I'm gonna find it like if I can because I want to be as factual as possible with communicating this. I'm gonna find it because I literally just read something about it today, maybe 10 minutes before we got
Oh, really?
on air
Well,
about it, and it was yeah, I mean, because it just goes to show, like, man, we can live anywhere in the world. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
everywhere now, like, "Hey, you wanna live off grid? Say less." You can,
right. Yeah,
go to one of those
become
places.
a digital nomad. Absolutely, I'm all for it. I do want to say though, talking about Google and OpenAI, like they're not the only names in the game. There's a lot of startups out there. There's a lot, and again, OpenAI, again, democratization, taking down the paywall for a lot of these things. There's a lot of open AI out there for people to experiment, and then also to borrow tech to make their own. That is still a big thing going on. So even though it's Google and OpenAI, it's not even close to being done. So you can't even say it's a close race. So you never know when someone's just going to slide in. Again, we just finished with the Derby, right? So you never know. You never know who they could be against the rail, right? And you just come in on fourth, you get boxed, and you have no idea.
Just one
So there's
idea
some
away, man. One
there's
idea
some really
away.
interesting things. I still have a lot of love for Amazon for Claude. They haven't had an update in a few months though, but Amazon is the one who's backing them. Um, I think it's a very powerful model. I think it's a really powerful AI. They just haven't had an update, so they don't seem like they're battling, but they're there. I'm really excited about how that's going to be put into the works. And another thing is that because um, with Google, of course, with Gemini, we have a lot of Google tech in the world. We have Android, Google Assistant, all of this kind of stuff throughout the house. Amazon's the same way. We have um, Alexa. We have, I'm trying not to say that so loud so it turns on, but throughout the whole house, video monitoring, everything like that. And so it's very easy for Amazon to integrate these things. Whereas when you have other, companies like maybe OpenAI, or some of these other, not the big tech giants, that they're going to have to get bought out, right? There's going to have to be some sort of
Merger
part
or yeah,
partnership with it, right?
yeah.
So so it's still going on, right? That race is still happening. So there's so much more out there. I'm really curious to see, um, who's going to kind of come out of nowhere and just go, oh, but by the way, this is what we've been working on, and it's not music, and it's not video, and it's not images, and it's just going to blow our mind because it's just going to be something we haven't even thought about. So the partnerships and acquisitions aspect of it, I mean, that's a huge part. I love business drama. So so this again, this is just playing like straight into my serotonin zone. Um, so yeah, keep an eye on Claude. I like it. I'm not going to say it's being exactly overshadowed by AI and Google, but they've got a good pivot, right? They've got a good integration opportunity, so they don't really have to race so much. Um, so I wanted to make sure that's in there. But it is really, I mean, it is really interesting to see how all of this is tying in. So
And I know we haven't mentioned Dolly, we haven't mentioned Midjourney, which I think are some of the integrations and the imagery aspect that's really allowing the technology to enhance itself. But again, it just goes back to the brilliant minds of humans because it starts there. We have to come up with the idea, and then the swiftness of the technology, because I that's really what it is. This technology, it can move really fast without interruption. And humans can do the same, but we get distracted easy, clearly. So
we do. I keep a transcription app on my computer a lot, so I can keep track of what I'm saying because I get distracted so easily. But I will say, like, again, with everything that's coming out, and who knows what's going to happen next week and next month and next year, I do feel that we all kind of win on this. I mean, minus the Skynet doomsday opportunities, right? The paperclip um, theory. If you're not familiar with the paperclip theory, take a look at that. Um, but I think AI for everyone is really the mantra that we're getting to right now, right? That's what we want. We want democratization. We want the ability to have tools that are accessible and allow accessibility to everybody, um, and and not just to innovate and to learn, and we want to democratize AI development too, so we can create an even um, more rapid innovations. And of course, we talk about education a lot. It's close to both of us, and and the ability, how great it will be to incorporate this into faster, better, more quality education, for people who are both in and especially out of reach of this. There's a lot of marginalized communities who aren't, who can really hugely benefit from this. I live in a great neighborhood in a great city with a great education, and not everyone is so lucky. So that is something that's really important when we think about, well, I don't want it to go this far and I don't want to go that far. Think about the people who don't have what you have, who could really benefit so in incredible lengths, and I mean, really take such a generational leap, to success with this technology. I think, I mean, it will change family histories, and that's, I mean, again, I mean, I'm not feel like I'm being over dramatic here, but that's truly what it can do. I mean, this is the printing press, this is the internet, this is our revolution here. So, I'm wax romantic on that a little bit, but that's where I think we're going to go. Right when we talk about natural interactions, we talk about AI assistance, we talk about augmented reality and surrogate experiences. That all kind of comes to mind. How do we're just tethering ourselves closer to so much data and so much information. I feel like um, it will cause problems, sure, but the only reason is because it's making changes, and I'm for progression. I think, and I'm not going to get lost in the fallacy of all progression is good progression, but for this, I think that the the positive outweighs the negative, and I think we should just figure it out later. That's I don't want to be what are they Pollyanna about it, but the advancement is just too good to let it fall behind, right? So
Yeah.
well, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on that one.
I
Um,
disagree. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, I know.
I hear you, I hear you, I hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we can be a little more cautious than what we're doing, for sure. Here's what I would love for a rule for us to have. If we create something, we must also create a remedy. So, like, if we create something and it can destroy us, then we also need to be able to create, like, a kill switch or something, to make sure that that doesn't happen. Like, if we can have some sort of boundaries or something there that can at least, mitigate or offset some potential risks, that would be ideal. But I think right now, it tastes so good and it's so good to us that we're gonna have a bellyache later if we don't slow
Oh,
down.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? And drink some water and, eat some veggies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conversation about being, being a social citizen online. There's gonna be, what is, our individual, and social, responsibility for AI. That's gonna be something, that's important, and that's gonna be a household conversation and a township conversation, and a social conversation, I think. You know, using these things, especially when we start talking about things like deep fakes, to be able to mimic the voice of, say, the president, who typically people will, if they see and hear someone of great power talking that looks seamless, chances are they're going to believe it. We already know how algorithms can change our system in the U.S. So with the deepfake technology, that is definitely something that is I mean, we got presidential
Something to
election
think
coming up
about.
here.
I was
It's
just
it's
thinking of that. It's gonna
it's
be
gonna
interesting.
happen.
Yeah.
So that is true. That is true. We're very malleable creatures when it comes to what we believe, and oddly enough, and yeah, and that's going to be important, right? So I do think we're going to have AI also protecting us to let us know, hey, listen, like this content is not exactly accurate. This image has been doctored. This video is artificial intelligence. This, letting us know. Um,
Give us a
um,
watermark or something, jeez. Like, this is
right, right. I
crazy.
think, and this, I mean, but again, this problem, this is not a new problem. I say not too long ago, maybe 25 years ago, there was a photograph. I don't remember what it was. I want to say maybe it was, in government, we'll just say Oval Office, but it's probably not even that. Anyway, they photoshopped a Diet Coke out of the image, right? They were just like, that's too much product placement. Diet Coke's making enough money. Let's get rid of it. Well, then there was what's there's that's an ethical dilemma, right? Because people believe what they see, and if you're taking this out because of product placement, I mean, I get that aspect of it, but how do we now inform the public that what they're seeing is not undoctored? Um, that was, that's Photoshop, and we know what Photoshop can do.
Wouldn't that be a great case study? Like, man, could design something to show whether it's manipulated or not. I mean, that's something that we really have to think about, though. Like, as a society, we have to have parameters, right? Otherwise, it's gonna get out of control, and we won't know what's real versus fake, or at least eventually, once things get out of hand or it's uncontrollable, then
Right.
those parameters are gonna have to be set. But it's something
And
to think
that's
about for sure.
and that's something that people are working on.
Yeah,
The ability for AI to reveal itself is to be able to pull that curtain, right? That's going to be very important. People,
yeah.
there are some things that people don't really, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Someone photoshopped, or there's a video of like dolphins swimming in Venice, after the pandemic, and which was completely false. But it went through the internet like crazy. People didn't know what they were seeing. They believed it was real. It wasn't. It seemed relatively harmless, but it manipulated the minds of millions and millions of people. So how it's not exactly harmless, but that's the thing, is that we don't really know what we're going to need to administer out there, until it comes out. But I do agree. I do think we should stay on it, especially when it comes down to these big buckets of power. Yeah, we need to be careful. We need to be careful about that. We need to be careful about how not to say that we shouldn't create technology that makes realistic voices at all, but we need to be sure that we've got a fail safe as well. Um, Even the best of us are very malleable when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Like, give me a beep or something, like, give me something.
Yeah, we
Let
just
me
need a
know
beep.
what
That's all I'm
to do.
asking for.
But this
Um,
was great. I love this conversation. I think we definitely need to talk more about it. Like, there's mainly the ethical component. I mean, that's just a conversation in itself with so much that we're doing. But it's also maybe in one of our episodes we can discuss the environmental facts about what's going on, and just some thoughts and ideas of options that we have that can kind of help mitigate some of those harmful effects. Because it's just gonna get bigger. We have to come up with something. There's always a solution. There's always an answer.
And I think that's gonna be part of our for our education too. I mean, I'm just reading, this misinformation susceptibility test, about how to recognize, I hate this term, but I'm just gonna how about misinformation, right? Propaganda. I'm not gonna use the key, that everyone thinks of, but whether or not the headline is real or not, whether or not the image is real or not, we're going to have to teach people to, critical thinking skills. We really are going to have to push that so people can say, man, something about this is not right. And now more than ever, because millennials, Gen Zers, right? This is something that we're relatively used to, and sometimes we glaze over it. And sometimes we don't know what we're looking at. And I think that this is a conversation, again, part of our education as being responsible in this tech world is to exercise and to teach critical thinking so we don't get swept up and we don't get netted into some of this predatory aspect of AI.
Hashtag don't get netted.
Don't get netted. I like
That's
that.
hilarious. I love it. But yes.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, no, there's a lot going on. I think that was a really man. We touched on a lot of things, and again, that's really just Google, Gemini. But there's so much going on right now. The news is covering it. We've got this race going, um, but it's always vastly changing. I think we hit on some of the more interesting aspects of like where could this go? What's the applicability of of today? And then also, like we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We can exercise our critical thinking. We can be citizens of responsibilities, responsible citizens of the world. Like, I mean, if ever there were a time to enact that, I say we act it now. Like, let's just start. We can start today. Let's start now being
It's true. I
responsible
love
citizens
that.
of the
I love
world.
that. I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely. So I think we're closing up on time here. But yeah, some really good stuff here, and I think there's some stuff to follow up. I'm curious to know if anyone out there has any other questions. I'm also really curious to know if who's been using these kind of music sandboxes that we didn't really touch too much on, that Google put out there. Some of the new images. How are people using this? How are they creating content for others, for their family, for what? How are people utilizing this innovation? Um, Especially students. Some of our students at Careerists. Uh, yeah, there's just so much opportunity out there. So hopefully we can get some ideas with people what their thoughts on, are they afraid of it? Is this Skynet? Is that or
Right.
are they just saying, hey, like let's just
I
let it
love that.
happen, let's just let it happen.
Totally
Um,
cool.
yeah, we'll see. So hopefully we can get some conversation going with that. But in the meantime, Kimmy, it's always a pleasure. I think we're
In the
at
meantime, in between time,
yeah.
always, always, and until next time. Until next
All
time.
right. All right. Well, take care. We'll talk to you next week.